enough. Oh, darling, 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 walk a while with me. You've got so much, so much, so much. Many times I love, many times, baby. Many times I've grazed along the open road. What's up, Jonathan?
You know, Darius, no matter how the rest of this live stream goes, this day will always be special to me as the first time you told me you love me. And I just want to say I love you too. You're doing great work. Deserves to be out in the world.
I do love you. So there you go. I sang it to you as well. Guys, welcome to the great. Oh man, I love. I don't know if I love the show more or singing to my guests more. It's still a toss-up. Anyway, before we get started, guys, welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and boy, do we have a special guest for you guys today, my friend Jonathan Domsky. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
It's a pleasure to be here,
guys. Well, it's a pleasure to have you. First of all. The format of the show is quite simple. We are bringing together change makers from all over the world who are living their passions to create greatness. And my friend Jonathan is neither short of greatness nor passion. So we're going to be diving into that in just a moment here. But before we get there, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping. As you know, we are live. I have my team on standby. So if you're on Facebook, start a watch party. This is a really good opportunity when we get into what Jonathan does for those of you guys that really want to elevate your lives, to learn about how do you maximize your potential and the type of things that Jonathan does. So we're going to be talking a lot about, how do people really elevate themselves and live the life that they're trying to live. So yeah, start a watch party, ask us questions. My team is on standby. They will be shooting questions over to us, and you get this one very special hour-ish with Jonathan to do so. I forgot to ask you, Jonathan, do you have a hard stop?
I do not.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, we run for about an hour, and then we will debrief after the show. But before we go there, we got a great show ahead. And like I said, we have a very special guest, and I feel so lucky to have him here. A little bit about Jonathan. Jonathan is a serial entrepreneur. He is CEO, and he has his new amazing venture, which is called Untangled Coaching. And this is whereby he's working with entrepreneurs, CEOs, and change makers to help them untangle their lives and actualize themselves and becoming the best versions of themselves. Did I nail that? Is that close enough for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an executive coach, but more specifically, Darius, I help you untangle the clutter in your business and personal life that's slowing you down and holding you back so that you can have a profitable business and a satisfying life that's easy, meaningful, and joyous.
Untangled meaning you get yourself out of your own way. Is that...
so much of our lives are filled with drama and these things that we're working hard for, these things that we think we want. But when you really listen, when you pare back all the stuff that's in the way, and then you just simplify it and see what's really important, I help you bring your best, most authentic self to that. And it makes your business easier, more meaningful, more joyous. It makes every aspect of your life more easy, meaningful, and joyous.
That's awesome, man. So I want to rewind a little bit because some of our guests will know you and some of them won't. And so some are like, well, who the hell are you to tell me how to untangle my life? Right. And I already know why you're a good person for that. By the way, you came up in a conversation last night. I was hanging out with our dear friends, Rick Sapio and Randy Love Cohen.
Yeah.
And we took a picture that I'm going to send to you. But I saw them. We went to Randy's lake house last night. And we were talking they're talking specifically about how you're working with Randy's team. And you're doing a lot of amazing work for different entrepreneurs and CEOs. And these guys, for those of you guys that don't know, I mean, most of the GOTers are going to know who I just talked about because these guys are like freaking legends. But these are some very, very successful entrepreneurs and CEOs. And these are guys that it's the type of thing where if they tell you you should do something, you just like don't question it, you do it. And these are the guys that are like, dude, everyone needs to work with Jonathan. And it's amazing that you've started this new venture. But before we do go there, and as you know, let's putting aside the glowing endorsements you've gotten from the Sapios and the Randy Cohens of the world, how did you how'd you become an entrepreneur? what led you down this path, and how did you decide to get into coaching?
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was 24 years old. And if you had asked me any time prior to that, Jonathan, when you grow up, are you going to be a business person? Are you going to be an entrepreneur? The answer would have been absolutely not. I had no interest in it whatsoever. But my origin story is the week after I graduated from college, I was on a plane with a one-way ticket to China. I had majored in, it started out in engineering and then wound up getting double degrees in economics and Chinese, but I wanted an adventure. I wanted to perfect my Chinese. I had no plan. It was just me and my backpack and a lonely guidebook. And I traveled around China. As it happened, the third week I was there, I met the woman who I eventually married. We got engaged 7 months later. And we were used to spending all of our time together. I mean, 23 and a half hours a day together. And that wasn't enough. And when we came to the US for the first time, coming back to Chicago, we were just used to spending all of our time together. And, what were we going to do? We were going to both get jobs, and then we see each other for 4 hours in the evening and maybe on weekends. And, maybe we'll get two weeks a year, that we could go to China. We wanted that to be a part of our life. So we thought, like, what could we do? We didn't have any money. We didn't have any experience. So we said, we need to go into business so we could start a business together. That's why I started my first business, which was Kidorable. If you've seen umbrellas or raincoats or rain boots that look like frogs and ladybugs and firemen and stuff like that, that's us.
Oh, no way.
So it's for a year, she learned English. I just got a job as an admin, saved a little bit of money. And in February of 1997, quit my job, went to China, went to a bunch of trade shows, talked to everyone we knew, and we decided, import-export was the way to go. Didn't have any experience, didn't have any money, but that would allow us to have this connection to China and go back and forth. We went to the Chicago Gift Show and the Children's and Women's Apparel Show. We had all sorts of stuff that had nothing to do with each other. We were not good business people. We had silk scarves, we had table settings, pottery. We also had some kind of fun umbrellas and some fun painted hangers. So I said, okay, great, we're in the kids business. And then she's an artist. She's a graduate of the China Academy of Fine Arts, China's premier art school. So she started designing all of our products, and we invented the niche of fun, practical, unique children's accessories, things that all kids need, but they excite their imagination so they become part of their everyday play. And it grew, and we made a great values-based company. I wish I could have read your book when we started, but we learned through trial and error and talking to people we knew. I started a few other businesses since then, although Kidorable was the main one. And then January 31st this year, it was a week like any other. It was a Friday. The week ended, went for a walk for a couple hours to clear my head, process, make sense of things. And Darius, I was just struck with an epiphany that I was born to be a coach. I love learning. I'm a personal growth athlete. I've read hundreds and hundreds of books. I attend all these courses and seminars and GOT. And I love to learn. I love to teach. The world needs this. And I decided that I'm going to step away from my companies, and with the help of some of my GOT friends helping me, okay, so this is what I need to do. How do I do it? I started coaching, and it's I've been alive with purpose and passion ever since.
So that's, first of all, it's incredible to have that epiphany and then to just dive into it and that's very entrepreneurial of you, number one. But backing up for a second, so did you sell the businesses, or did you just
my wife's my partner in all of my businesses. So I transferred responsibilities to her and to some other staff. I'm still involved with them about an hour a day, but I've pretty much walked away from them.
So she's running the businesses while you're doing this. Okay,
right.
Great. And so that's great. I mean, you guys have got, obviously, and being in business with your spouse, man, I was in business up until recently with my twin brother, for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And what I found about being in business with someone that you're that close to, right? And so like a marriage, non-business related, is its own relationship. And then the business partnership is its own relationship, right? And then they become kind of one, right? Where, and what I found, like, it's my twin brother, so we're brothers and we're twin brothers, which is, twin brothers is different than brothers. It's a different, it's just its own relationship, right? Because it's like you learn everything at the same time. Some faster than others, and it's an interesting dynamic. And twins, all you twins out there, you know what I'm talking about. And so to then go from that to a business partnership, and then that become your relationship for, you know, your entire adult life, which is essentially what you just did with your marriage. What I found was you kind of lose a little bit, at least I felt like you lose a little bit of the brotherhood, because, and you fill it with business partnership, right? And then and that's a very, you know, then now it's a complicated, that's a complicated, muddy machine, right? Like it's some good, some bad. The trust is there, obviously. The bad is like, well, now you end up talking about work with your significant other, your brother, all the time. So how did you overcome that?
So, you know, I have to tell you that the first 2 years we were in business, it was a non-issue because we were working 80 hours a week every day, and there wasn't time to think about all this stuff. But once, you know, we got on a particular path and we were able to slow down a little bit, the second and third year were very challenging. We fought about a lot of stuff. And the way that we got through that was to learn to trust that even if we see things a little bit differently, you know, we're both capable people. There's probably a reason for the decision. And we made an agreement, if it's small stakes, we're just not going to talk about it. You know, if she makes a decision and it affects less than, you know, $500, then like, what am I going to even bother being involved in it with? And we have very complementary skills. There's relatively little that I'm good at that she's not, and there's relatively little that you know, she's not good at that you know, I'm good at what she's not, and vice versa.
Nice.
So it was easy to have separate areas of responsibility. I was mostly in charge of operations. You know, she was in charge of product development and production. And you know, it certainly has its challenges. You know, when at times when the marriage is having a challenge, the business has, you know, it amplifies things in the business. At times when the business is having a challenge, it, you know, strains the marriage. But you know, for especially coming from where we were, you know, our Kidorable is a love story. You know, the only reason it exists is because we wanted to spend all of our time together. And you know, after we had a child, again, being able to, you know, bring him to work and spend time and that flexibility, it's been the foundation of you know, so much that's good in our lives.
So cool.
I certainly don't want to minimize the challenges, and I would not necessarily recommend it to a new couple starting out. Well, because if it does go sideways, you get double screwed, right? You're screwing your business and your family, right? So that's the risk. The upside is it works out and it's great, and there is some like I always tell people, you should never ever hire your friends in your business, because I don't like the risk reward relationship. Like if it works out, that's your upside, right? My upside is my friend and I are still friends. You're like, well, you already had that going into it. Like what do you, the downside is it blows up your friendship. And by the way, there's like a 90% chance your friendship's fucked, just so you know. But in a relationship, in a marriage, like, yeah, that risk is there, but I think it's different because there's this, you're sharing in the rewards the same way. The dynamic is more mutual in that sense. And so, and the trust is at an all-time high. And so, and when there are conflicts, it makes it even that much more important to make it work.
Right. And you get to stress test your relationship probably in ways that other people don't get to, which, you know, it's like anything. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And then you learn how to interact with each other in ways that other people don't. So I actually think, like with family businesses, I have different feelings than I do about hiring friends. I do think the risk is high, but it heightens the risk, but the rewards are high too. So I could support that. So you said something though early on that made me think of our friend Jack Daly and his life by design, because when you started talking about why you did what you did, there was these inklings, if not more than that, of a life by design, right? You wanted to be able to have a business with your partner. You guys because you wanted to spend 24 hours a day with each other, right? You guys wanted to be able to go back to China because that's where she was from, and culturally that mattered to you guys. So you guys basically designed a life in a business around doing that. Can you walk us through, like, I mean, maybe that was intentional, maybe it was I mean, obviously it was intentional from a perspective of getting what you wanted, but did you think about, like, I'm designing my life? What are your thoughts about that now looking back?
Yeah. So at the time, much of it we fell into and we learned by doing. We did something and we were self-aware, and if it worked, we did more of it. And if it didn't work, we did less of it. Although if I could reinterpret it through what I know today. So, Simon Sinek, find your why. He talks about, what he calls the golden circle, that there's on the outside, there's the what, and the what's everything that you do, and everybody knows what they do. And he kind of dismisses it. Speaking from a business perspective, he kind of dismisses it like, okay, you happen to be in this business, but so what? So are 1,000 other people. And then one step into that circle, one level into that circle is the how. And the how is what, Darius, you're so passionate about, core values, what makes you special as a company. And then at the center is what he calls the why. Why does your company even exist in the first place? And for a company, that makes a lot of sense. You start with why. You're able to articulate your why, and it's attractive to customers, it's attractive to staff. You imbue everything you do with your how and your core values, and it just makes it incredibly satisfying. And then the what doesn't matter so much. But when it comes to living your life, it's the opposite. You start with what. Ask a 3-year-old why they like to draw, and they're just going to look at you like you're stupid and say, because it's fun. That's why I draw. Ask them, what's your value around drawing? And like, I don't know, but it lights them up. It makes their heart sing. And as we grow, as we start our businesses and our lives, and much before that, even just when we first start to get to school, well-meaning adults, they tell us, stop doing what we love. When my son was in first grade, just after he had started, I talked to the teacher outside the school a couple weeks in, asked her how everything was going, and she said, well, things are good, but he's a little trouble transitioning. Like, what do you mean? He was like, well, we'll be doing a topic and I'll really be into it, and then it'll be time for the next topic, and we have a really packed day, every moment's precious, and he still wants to do the other topic, and sometimes it's a little disruptive. And I kind of nodded my head and said, okay, I'll talk to him about it. But in my heart, I was thinking like, oh no, it started. He loves something, and you're telling him to stop. You're telling him that he's a problem because he loves what he's doing. And there's no way I'm going to support you in deadening the aliveness of my child. But that's what that's what happens to all of us through well-meaning adults who tell us that stop doing what you love and be practical, study hard, go to school, that stuff. And we forget what makes our heart sing. And we might even, and when I started Kidorable, my purpose in doing the business was so that I could spend more time, with this woman that I loved. And I didn't know what my why was, but from today's perspective, I could say, well, my why is to untangle the clutter, to make people's lives easier, more meaningful and more joyous. And when I think about what I accomplished at Kidorable and what I try to accomplish as a father and all these things, it's that's it. The best part of my day was, or week was the 10 hours a week that I'd be in meetings, because like I got to do it, got to teach people, support people, train them, help them be more effective in their jobs and make their jobs more easier, more meaningful and more joyous. That's what I loved. And all the other stuff, I mean, I was good at it. I was passionate about it. I worked hard. It's had a great effect, but it didn't make my heart sing. And I didn't realize that. I didn't understand that. Mm-hmm. But so I'll give you another example. So again, using Simon Sinek's model again, in his book, Find Your Why, he talks about an Italian coffee maker, La Mazorca. They make espresso machines and stuff like that.
Right.
And apparently their why is something like to foster deep connections with people. And the way that Simon Sinek talks about it, like that's why they exist. And the fact that they make coffee, that's just it's irrelevant. That's what they do. And if you're a young person starting your career and you read that and you think, my why is to have deep connections with people, and you work with La Mazorca, and then you start working with them, and if they know their why and they're in this book. I'm sure they know their core values too. And you think like, yeah, that's it. I love this company. I love everything about this company. You're going to have a really satisfying career. But if it turns out that your what is different from there, it's if you don't like coffee, you used to think coffee is disgusting. It's bitter and it's gross. Your heart will not sing selling coffee machines. And you'll still have a good career because there's all that other stuff that's so good. And oh my gosh, if you don't have that stuff, if you don't live in alignment with your why, if you don't live in alignment with your core values, then again, it's going to be deadening your aliveness. It's going to be, you're going to feel like there's something missing. You're going to live, what Thoreau called, a life of quiet desperation.
Right.
Go through a midlife crisis. There's got to be more than this. But let's say for you, Darius, that, you hate coffee, but sweet, buttery goodness is where it's at. You love cake, and you're an entrepreneur. Don't start a coffee company, start a bakery. And if you could start a bakery, something that makes your heart sing and that's consistent with your core values and that's consistent with your why, I mean, your soul's on fire and it's so much better. And that's what I've been living this last 7 months.
That's interesting. So I'll use myself as an example. So I figured out in business at least I figured out a why for my company, which was to grow happiness.
Yeah.
And it was actually out of necessity because the industry, it was the mortgage industry. And this is in 2013 when I came up with this for our business. And I got introduced to Simon Sinek probably when you did early on in his career. This is before he became
He spoke to us at UOT.
What year did he speak at GOT? Was it 09?
It was right when he was blowing up with TED and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I met him like just before that, and then I saw him again in September of 09. So that year was a good year for him. That was when he really started taking off. And but I met him like right before it happened, and he's a nice guy, he's a smart guy, and his work was interesting. And I asked him the question. I said, well, and this was like in a room of like 35 people, and this is back when he did stuff like that. And I said, and did he give those purple metallic coins?
Yeah, I got one. I love that.
You got one? Yeah, I got one. I got one too. For those, some of you have no idea what we're talking about, but Fran Biederman Gross, do you know her?
Mm-mm.
She worked with him and did a bunch of stuff with him, and she's been since early on. And so she said that prior to purple, they were silver, the coins. So if you have a Simon Sinek coin, you're a special person. I lost mine. But anyway, I raised my hand and was like, how the hell do you figure out your why? Now mind you, like my business had just been destroyed. This is in June of 08, and in August of 07, the mortgage industry imploded. I was kind of at a bottom. I would say June of 08 was when I was basically it was the first time I'd really bottomed really hard in business. Like it was a very trying time for me. Yeah. And I asked him that because I felt lost. And he and I ended up, we went to a Mets game and we ended up kind of chatting and talking and it made sense, right? Like the good thing about the Simon Sinek stuff is he does a very good job of making it make sense that, that it's about this higher calling of why are you here, and why should anyone care is what he says, which is important,
Yeah.
And so I got pretty clear that was an important part of business, like almost a North Star, like this is where you got to aim towards this bigger idea. And so when I started my next company, we did, the mortgage industry had just been through, 5 really brutal years. And I said, I just want what I think everyone else wants. And our clients want it, I know too, and our employees want it, which we just want happiness in our lives. Like and if there's a way for me to create an environment that creates that, then all the better. Let's fight for that, right? So our core value was growing. I was growing happiness, and then so I ran into him again in 2015 at TED, and I said, "Hey, Simon, remember me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I remember you." And I'm like, "Hey, man." I was like, I just want to let you know, like, you really had an impression on me 6 years ago. And I just want to let you know the core purpose, the why of my company is growing happiness. And he's like, I'd change it to grow happiness. So I ended up changing it to grow happiness. That was from his mouth to God's ears. And so the point of me saying all that is I got really clear on my why for this last business that I just left. And the first thing I did, as you know from my book, is all about designing core values. So like that was something that I felt like I was very comfortable with. So I built our core values. I had our core purpose, but the product was I will be honest with you. I was never in love with mortgages, and I think it was just one of those things where it was a quick, like, you got into your business because you wanted to, be around your, girlfriend slash fiance slash wife, and I got into mine because I wanted to make as much money as I could, and I was young, and I was like, oh, well, I saw a lot of people making money in mortgages, and I was like, oh, like that's the fast way to make money, and I'm tired of being poor, and I want to be rich, right? These were the simplistic thoughts going through my head. So I went for the what very first. Like, I didn't know about core values or why when I was 23 years old. I went for, I want to make money. And then I got good at it. And I was like, oh, well, then I learned about the why or the core values. Then I learned about the why. That's the order in which I learned it, which I think is pretty normal, right? I think people learn their what first, because we're not taught, hey, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be successful in life, you need to know your core purpose and you need to know your core values. This stuff didn't even was not highly promoted 30 years ago.
Darius, could I interrupt you and ask you to plug your book for a moment? Because when I when I read it, the most powerful part, for those of you who don't know Darius's book, the first half is a very well done, entertaining, story-based way of telling you how to find your core values and why they matter. But the real treasure in the book and why it deserves to be on your bookshelf is the second half, where you talk about how to make core values alive in your company. And you tell a story about, I want you to tell it, but when you gather everyone together and you ask them what they wanted to be when they were little.
Yeah, well, so I'll plug my book. Thank you, Jonathan. By the way, I was telling the story last night where I said, when I talk to people like Jonathan, who I know are big readers and who have strong opinions about what they read, and when they tell me that, a lot of people in YPO and EO write books, and I usually go into them, and you had said this story to me, I usually go into them and I'm like expecting to be disappointed, which is maybe not the exact words you said, but that's the feeling I walked away with.
I'm expecting to honor the relationship, but not feel like it was time well spent. But that was not the case reading your book. I was really grateful that you said, please read my book. First time I ever said that.
So Jonathan sent me this massive email, and I was like, I literally was like, I think this made writing the book worthwhile just by getting this email. That's how great I felt about it. And so I was telling our friend Rick and Randy that. I said, and Rick's read it, and he's like, yeah, man, that's a great book. So thank you for plugging the book. But yeah, the question I always ask people, and it's to prove the point. And by the way, when I ask this question in the business, we have a 3-part onboarding that I designed with my friend Summer Thoman. First part is we spend 2 to 3 hours on Strength Finder. We want to teach people about that we are a organization that is all about engagement, because we know it's really important for our team to be engaged so that they can really feel like they're doing what they're meant to be doing, right? Because that gives value to the business. I mean, all this, by the way, guys, all this is selfish, right? I am the most selfish person on earth. But I've learned a secret, and we'll go to this in a second after I go to talk about 10-year-old self. My secret is, I'll tell you in a second. So I'm going to leave a cliffhanger on my secret. But I always ask people, so it's strengths, core values is the second module. The third module is core purpose. And when I go into core purpose, that module, I ask a simple question of the team. I said, when you were 10 years old and you could do anything and everything, what did you want to be when you grew up? And I would ask the team this. This is they're 6 hours into this training at this point. And I always see they're this softening in their bodies, right? Because they're thinking back to when they were a kid. And then I make them say it. What do you want to be? I want to be the president. What do you want to be? I want to be a mom. What do you want to be? I want to be a lawyer. What do you want to be? I want to be an actor. What do you want to be? Professional baseball player. What do you want to be? I want to be a coach. What do you want to be? And they go down the list. And mind you, we're sitting there, and a bunch of these people are loan processors, loan officers, administrative people. I mean, no one, 99 out of 100 times, they don't say the job they're doing. And in the mortgage company, the 1 out of 100 is because their mom or dad worked at a mortgage company, which is kind of rare, to find that, right? And so then I would say to them, I'd say, look, and this is what I believe is that companies have an opportunity to create an environment where everyone can be a part of something greater than themselves. And that's my goal. That's what I believe a world-class organization is it's a company that is great, that creates a greater opportunity for everyone to be a part of something greater than themselves. So that's actually why I asked that question.
Yeah. So I remember you saying in the book, like what? Like none of you wanted to be in the mortgage industry when you were 10 years
Oh.
old? That's crazy. But but here you are. And this is why this is going to be the best job that you've ever had. But if they actually did want to be in the mortgage industry when they were kids and all that other stuff, then oh my God,
Right.
they've landed and they'll never need to leave.
It's hard when it's not a sexy product. I made the assumption in the book, well, in life, that none of them want to be in the mortgage industry. And I actually say this as well, and I don't say this in the book. So thank you for reminding me what I wrote in my own book, because I forgot. I said, neither did I. I said, but here we are. We all got here for one reason or another. I got here because I want to make money. You got here because you had some job. I was a telemarketer at a mortgage company in high school. So and this is so true with everybody. Most people don't go into the job they dreamed about doing when they were 10 years old. That's very rare. And so I believe that companies have an opportunity to make the business about something greater than themselves by elevating to these ideas that we're talking about around your why, your core values, because now it's not about the product. And then I would say this as well, which you'll appreciate. And this is actually, I'm moving towards the direction of having a debate with you right now. Okay. I say, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care about mortgages. They're just a widget. And I feel that way about most businesses and products. Like most people tell me what they do, and I react the same way that other people react when they ask me what I do. My eyes glaze over. I go, oh, that's nice, and I don't care, right? Unless they have a really cool, interesting job, which is most people don't have that, But I think that the what is a luxury, and that if you can get the why and the core values right, that you're cooking ass and taking names. Because what if the what isn't aligned for you? You're just going to leave it all? I mean,
Well, let's talk about that. So if you're a poor farmer living in a rural country and you were born to coach, tough luck. Your job's to be a farmer and you don't have a lot of choices, and that's sad. And then if you could focus on your why and your how, that's the key to a better life. You
sure.
work to live, and you really live, in those hours. But for the people who are listening, who are watching this, Darius, I mean, we're entrepreneurs living in rich countries. I mean, who has more control over our destinies than we do? And of course, you can do your what. It might take some time. I mean, you have to be responsible. You might have to unwind some of your responsibilities. But if you have a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan to transition from the what that you're doing now, that's consistent, I hope is consistent with your how and your why, but that it just doesn't light you up. But there's that other thing that it makes your heart sing. We're entrepreneurs, make a business around it.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. I think where I get stuck, and this is maybe where we should go in the conversation next, is I think it's really hard personally to focus on more than one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is just and I don't know, remember George Native spoke at Birthing of Giants.
Yeah.
So George Native, you have a good memory, so you'll probably remember he said something. He said, this guy, by the way, for those of you that don't know who George Native is, George Native is the creator and the founder and former CEO of what's now known as Boston Market. It was called Boston Chicken, I think, back when he started it. So this guy's kind of a famous dude. He sold it to Blockbuster or Pepsi or something like that. And he's in the entrepreneurial world like this. He's like the franchise extraordinary king. But the guy, and I don't think he's even alive anymore. He's probably in his 90s or something.
He was old when I saw him 20 years ago. Yeah.
And he was old when I saw him 15 years ago. So he said one thing, though, that stuck with me. This is the cool thing about meeting really smart people that are a lot older than you. He said, you learn from them, and maybe you learn the wrong thing, but at least you're hearing it from someone who's wise. He said, I don't believe in sitting on more than one toilet at a time. and it stuck with me. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, because it's really hard to focus on one thing at a time. So in your case, your wife can focus on this business that you guys have had for a long time. And it gives you have the luxury of going and following where your heart sings. That is probably, hey, by the way, you hedged your bets. You had your partner as a business partner, right? Most people my wife. My wife's like an artist. She's not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
She's not gonna
I made the transition in a day. Most people would have to do it over, over a course of months or years.
Well, right. So, but I do want to talk about that. So let's use me as an example. I was CEO of a fairly good sized mortgage servicing company. And I got to the point where the what did matter to me, because I got the why and I got the how well. I mean, that company is an amazing company. You guys at TMS know you are. And it is a place where people who are in the mortgage industry probably could not work at a better company. It is a model for a core value, core purpose, core value driven organization. And I got to the point where I guess maybe my work was done. I don't know, but I was ready to move on. And I had stayed there for I had stayed in the industry for 20 years for money, because it was the way I knew how to make money. And I have some personal, issues around money where I'm like probably like the cheapest guy in the world for how much money I make, right? And I've always been like that. Like my zero always keeps going up. I could have, $1 or like way more than $1, and it's all zero in my mind, which is not a healthy thing to have. But that's for another show. I'll get a psychologist on. We can talk about that. So I got to the point
for that later if you want.
What's that?
I've got something for you about that later if you want.
Okay, I'm excited to hear it. So, but I got to the point where it just didn't make sense for me. I was not inspired, and I felt like I had to move on, and so I left, right? And that's what made sense. And that was a really, 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 really painful and hard decision.
Yeah.
Right. So some people, I wasn't the founder of the company, my business partner was. So it wasn't one of those things where I was just taking a step back as chairman and I would hire a CEO, which some people have the luxury to do that. It just didn't, I would have been a silent owner and I would have just, stayed there. So for me, I had to make a hard decision, which was leave this thing that I built. And so it was a really painful, and I'm still figuring out what my next thing is. So how does is that the answer? Is yeah, you just have to go through that pain, or is there a better way in your mind?
Yeah. So there's a couple important answers to that question. And for what it's worth, for anyone who's listening, the third Wednesday of every month, I do a free Zoom workshop. And the one that's coming next, September 16th, is my life purpose discovery process. So it's exactly what we're talking about right now. And I'll give you a little preview of it. So first, just Darius, do you have a favorite food?
Pizza. Yeah.
Pizza. How do you know that pizza is your favorite food?
Because I think about it all the time. It's one of my passions in life.
Pizza makes your heart sing.
I could become a pizza. I could go. Everyone's like, you should open a pizza shop.
So when you love pizza, but you only knew you loved pizza after you tried pizza. Okay. Before you tried pizza, you didn't know that pizza was your favorite food. So True. The first thing is to try a lot of things, be aware, be present, observe. When do you light up? What lights you up? And if you don't know, or if you've forgotten, try more things and pay attention. And if you try enough things, you'll find something. But there's a difference between what lights you up, what makes your heart sing, and your life purpose. What makes your heart sing points in the direction of your life purpose, but it's probably not exactly what it is. The first step to finding your life purpose, what you were born for, the thing that just makes you feel alive, and that's it's your dharma, it's your it's your true path in this world. It starts with what you love. Your life purpose is not going to be something you don't like, but just loving something isn't sufficient. The next part is it has to be something you're good at. I enjoyed your singing and that you spoke to my heart, but
Oh, very good.
If you love singing, Darius, I would not recommend that you give everything up to pursue a singing.
What are you trying to say? Hey, listen, I am a solid 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay.
No, it's very. I only heard you sing for 40 seconds. It's very possible that if you worked at it, if you trained, if you found a teacher, that you could become great at it. So explore it. Find out. But if it's not something you love, if it's not something you're good at, it's not your life purpose. But we're not done yet. Is it something the world needs? I mean, the world needs entertainment. The world needs people singing to them that they love them. Your life purpose has to be bigger than you. If you become your own project, if you become your own life's work, it inevitably becomes a prison. If your life's work is for you to become richer, more beautiful, even if your life's purpose is to, is your own spiritual attainment, you will never measure up. and you're just destined to a life of hollowness and happiness. It has to be something bigger than yourself. What's something the world needs? But we're still not done, because let's just say you find something. Well, what are you doing right now? Very well, maybe your life purpose. You love core values. You love teaching core values. You love helping people understand core values. It's something that you're certainly good at. And wow, it's something the world needs. But is it sustainable? Most of us aren't lucky enough to be supported by someone else. We need to make money. And even if you're Bill Gates, I mean, your resources are still not unlimited. I mean, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they still take large donations so that they could do even more, with their life's work.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth part is, what can you be paid for? And as entrepreneurs, if you're that poor farmer, without an education, living in rural India, then you have to be a pretty special individual to be able to walk away from that and pursue your dream. And some people do, but it's a lot to ask the normal person, to take that kind of risk without any kind of support. But as an entrepreneur living in North America, in 2020, when there's just we have all these tools, we have all this support. It's to build a business around it. I mean, you're in the process of figuring this stuff out, but I mean, build a business around core values and wow. I mean, watch your soul light on fire, and it's sustainable because it's going to grow, because profit fuels purpose.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I appreciate it. I appreciate the perspective, because I think that's it's well thought out, and it's a good framework for making decisions off of, which is, does the world need it? Is it sustainable? Because I think a lot of the times, let's use pizza, for example. I think I know why I like pizza. I mean, I love to eat pizza, but I actually like making pizza probably as much as it's a toss up. If it's my favorite piece of pizza, I like to eat it a little more than I like to make it. But if it's not my favorite piece of pizza, then it's probably even. But I don't want to go make pizzas for a living. That's hard work. I'll make it for my family and friends, right? So to your point, and maybe it's because I don't see the higher value of it besides expressing love, right? And I can do it so maybe that's the difference between a hobby versus something that you go do. And maybe that's my question here. How do you know it's a hobby? Is it a hobby when it's not sustainable? And look, you could start a pizza empire. There's a bunch of people that have. Papa John's did that, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's lots of pizza empires out there. So my question to you is, let's use me as an example. Why not go start a pizza empire versus some other stuff? Because for me, when I look at the pizza empire, I'm like, maybe, but I don't want to go. Restaurants are fucking grind, man. Sure. And that's my reason for not actually wanting to do it, is it's a grind, and I don't know. That's probably my biggest reason.
Yeah. So here's the answer. What you love, what lights you up, what makes your heart sing, may or may not be your purpose, but it might point a finger in the right direction. It's a place to start. So when you find something you love, and lucky you, when you were 4, you discovered that you love pizza. It doesn't mean rush out and open a pizzeria. Sit with it, listen to it, explore it, see how it resonates. Compare it to other things. I mean, pizza's not the only thing you love in your life. I mean, you love core values. What else is there? Keep exploring. And if you feel that, well, yes, I love pizza, I'm good at pizza, the world needs pizza, Darius, and I could be paid for it, for making pizza or whatever it is, then test it, take a step, try it, see what happens. Abandon the idea that you can do this without risk.
What say that once again?
Abandon the idea that you can do this without risk.
What does that mean?
In order to do something, you have to give something up. We all have 24 hours in a day. Just by definition, by doing this thing, you're giving up everything else.
Oh, okay. So know that in order to actually take that step, there's risk involved, and be accepting of that.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And then pay attention, and you'll either feel that you're coming alive and the world is meeting you, or it's not, and then try something else.
So it's funny. We have 2 questions. I want to ask them, but I'm going to ask my question, because I'm going to be everyone knows. You guys know this about me. I do this show for this guy. This is the most selfish moment of my day. And so I get to ask smart people questions I'm wondering. So a lot of people I've talked to, when I told them what I'm doing right now, they're like, "Oh yeah, go get it out of your system." By the way, I've been told, yeah, no, I'm serious. They're like, "Oh, like, are you trying to start like a media company or something? Or what are you like? What is?" Like,
Yeah.
2 days ago, one of my former BOG mates was like, he was the Sam Penny was after show. He's like, "So why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like, what's the goal, right?" Because I do think a lot of, especially entrepreneurs, are like, "What's the goal? What's the?" And I'm like, part of me is afraid to say the goal, right? Because then I'm going to be held accountable to it. But I'm like, you know, I would love that this turns into something bigger because I really like doing it. Like, I really enjoy the show a lot. Like, I'm telling you, there's no greater hour in my day besides maybe hugging my kids and my wife. But I don't do that for an hour. I do that for like 30 seconds, right? And it's amazing. But like for an hour, I get to learn and I get to do crazy shit and talk trash. And, that's like, I'm self-actualizing on these shows. So, but I keep getting asked, and I'm telling you, my former business partner said to me, he said, "Well, maybe you could go do the thing." And I already know it's going to happen. Because I'm so money motivated. It's like, you're going to do it and then you're not going to get the money and you're going to want to go back to making money. And I'm like, maybe, but what is that? Like, when people start saying stuff like, go get it out of your system, obviously if people are, especially if you're in uncharted waters, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's easy for someone to say like, "What are you doing, Darius? Go do this thing that you know how to do," versus go try to become the Gary V of whatever the hell it is, or the Darius Mirshahzadeh or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Let's unpack it. There's a lot there. So you have a very strong skill set of making money. So my first question is, why couldn't you use that skill set around making a business around core values? I mean, Simon Sinek did it, and just between you and me, your book's better than his because it actually shows you how to do it.
Thank you.
As opposed to just inspiring you and saying, I've changed your worldview and now good luck, find your way. But can we go deep for a minute?
Yeah.
Spiritual for a moment?
Yeah, nothing's off limits.
So, if you're a personal growth athlete, if you're a searcher, if you're looking for meaning, you've come across this idea of non-attachment. Right. And non-attachment is this Eastern idea that we don't hold on to the results. But there's a real misunderstanding about just the nature of desire, what non-attachment means, and how to be happy. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to share it with you.
We got I don't know, 10, 15 minutes left for the show. Is that enough time?
So imagine what's a sport that you like?
Wrestling.
Oh, one with the ball. So
football.
Football. All right. So you love football. Your football game would be really boring if you didn't care if you scored or not. I mean, just what's even the point of playing football? If your game would be boring if you didn't try hard, and that when you threw the ball, someone actually caught it. Right? I mean, like, what's even the point? That's not what non-attachment means. Love life. Care, have goals. Care about those goals. Love people. Care about those people. But when you throw the ball, the second it leaves your hand, it's over. It's caught. It's not caught. Embrace the result. Use the power of your senses and your logical mind. Notice when I threw it this way, it was either caught or it wasn't caught. Use that to improve. But the fact of whether it's caught or not should be irrelevant to your level of joy. So that's the first thing. That's what it means to be non-attached. Non-attachment doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you don't have desire. It means that you try your best, you try to achieve your goals because you care about things and you love things. Desire is what makes life worth living. But then the second that ball leaves your hands, it's over. You're on to the next play. And it's irrelevant whether it connects or not. But not all desire is the same. Desire that is grasping, lust, jealousy, greed, accomplishment. It obscures reality. It separates us from the rest of the world. It brings out the worst in us. But desire that flows from your purpose is joyful. It brings out the best in us. It makes you feel one with the world. And Darius, you have this desire. You have this music within you that you want to set free and put out into the world. And that kind of desire is always energizing and is always joyful. And that's why to do it. And it's different from the desire to make money, which again is grasping and it obscures. It separates you from the rest of the world and from the value of other human beings.
Right.
But if you could use your technical skill in making money, in manifesting and working hard towards this desire that you have around spreading core values, I mean, wow, you're unstoppable.
Yeah, I like that. So I shouldn't be a singer.
Singing lights you up. Sing at the beginning of every show. Sing in the shower. Sing to your family. And if you believe in it, take singing lessons. But don't quit your day job yet.
Half of the charm is that I don't sing well. No, I sing well enough. I did take singing lessons. I learned how to. That's the part that you don't know. Yeah, it was funny. I sang it for my brother for his wedding. And I do like to sing, but to your point, it's not sustainable. I'll be a poor man on the street if I had to sing for a living. But I think anyone can tolerate a good 45 seconds of my singing if it leads to, if they get to, it's a little entertaining, and then it goes to the more meaty stuff that I am actually talented in. And I appreciate that very much, it's a good point, which is these like desires or greed and lust, and they're selfish, very selfish, right? And I do think that that is maybe the fight that we have as human beings is in service of others versus in service of ourselves. And my take is you do both, right?
Yeah.
And so what I found, and early on I said I have a secret to tell you guys that I'm gonna, and then I stopped myself because I wanted to create an artificial cliffhanger. But the secret I found is to make it all about other people so that they make it all about you. And and the way you do that is just whatever you make all about them, make sure that your alignment with them is the same, and then it just comes back to you, because by them helping you, they're helping themselves. That's just one of my secrets with core values, right? Which is I get very clear in a business about my core values so that people can get excited about it. But I don't say, hey, Jonathan, welcome to my company. These are my core values. You better believe in them. Like, you'd be like, fuck off, dude. I'm not going to believe in them. Or you might be like, sure, I do believe in them. I go a different route, which is, hey, Jonathan, these are my core values. But by the way, that's not the first thing I do. That's the third thing I do. The first thing I do is I go, let's explore your strengths. I want to figure out what makes you a uniquely amazing human being. And I'm going to teach you about that. Second thing I'm going to do is ask you what your core values are. So now by the way, that's 2 gives on. I've given twice now.
Yeah.
Thirdly, hey, proclamation. Here are my core values. I want you to learn about them. Now you're opened up towards it because your brain's soft and you're like, oh, Darius is like such a giver. And then I go, hey, 4th step. Hey, how do you think your core values connect with my core values? And now we're aligned, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a give. And I think that's the magic of creating value, is it's about the give. And when you give, you get, right? And I think that's one of my biggest learnings. And what you just said right now is important, because this idea around not being attached to the outcome, but caring that something good happens is different, right? Than only caring about something good that happens. Because my mantra, by the way, that I've landed on for this year, which I think resonates with what you just said, is the path is the win, and you got to enjoy the path, because I've spent 20 years of my career really there's moments I enjoy the path, but most of it's all about the outcome,
If I could build on that, it's not just that the path is more important than the outcome. It's that all there is the path. And
right.
Whatever your life is the path. Whatever you do, whatever goal you have, you reach the goal, and maybe you enjoy it for 15 minutes, or maybe even a month, and then you're on to the next goal.
A month. Well, dude, have you ever had a goal that you enjoyed for an entire month?
No.
I did. The longest I've enjoyed a goal for is like 3 days.
Yeah, and then you're on to the next thing. The path. Your life is the path.
Right.
It's not just that it's more important than the goal. It's that it's all there is.
We had a guy on the show last week on Friday, I think it was, Jimmy Ferris, and he played professional. Did you? You should see this guy. I'm going to bring him to GOT. By the way, do you have enough time to stay on for another few minutes?
Sure. Yeah, and I want to share a tool with you about your relationship with money too.
Yeah, well, we're gonna let the show run. So if you guys want to listen, because normally I end in 1 hour, but I love this show, so we're staying on. So Jimmy Ferris played professional football. Jimmy, if you're watching, what's up, dude? He played professional football for 6 years. It was his lifelong dream since he was 10 years old. He was, in order to play pro football for 6 years, you have to be like exceptionally good all the way to get there, right? Like you don't even get there unless you've been the best all the way up. Then he's 22, he plays till he's 28, 29, and then it gets taken away from him, right? Which is like, that's a totally normal story in professional sports. Like you do it till like you're not of value, or someone doesn't want to hire you anymore. And then it's like, they drop you in the deep end and walk away. And so I thought that was a really interesting way to look at, he got his goal, right? And he loved the process. But then it got taken away from him, and then he had to rebuild, and that's what he's been doing since. Yeah. And so I think that that's a really good analogy for goal. That's a really beautiful goal that took a long time to hit. He's 12 years in the making, 13 years in the making. Then he gets there, and then he gets to fight and enjoy to be there for 6 years, and then it's gone, right? So and there's probably a lot of ups and downs that, along the way. Normal people don't get that, right? Normal people, they might get that goal, but once they hit it, and I said it earlier and I'll say it again, I've yet to have a goal that I savor for more than 72 hours, right? And normally it's 72 hours because I'm just partying for those 72 hours. We hit the goal, yeah, let's go party, right? And then you're and you go and do a trip, or you go to Vegas, or you go to Hawaii, or you have a big dinner with everybody, and everyone's celebrating, and then the next day you celebrate again, and then by the third day you're like, all right, I'm done celebrating. And then maybe it settles in, and then you're like, to your point, well, what next? And by the way, I've lived my entire 42 years of existence with that. Half the time I didn't even do the fucking celebration. I'm serious. Like there's times where I'm like, I didn't even celebrate the win. Yeah. And my brain goes to the next one. What's next? Yeah. And the process of getting there was a fucking grind. Yeah. It was hard work. I mean, dude, I had a 10, my biggest business win came after 07, 08, 09, 010, 011, 12, 6 years of grind to then end up in a win. I mean, by the way, I tell people, I would never, ever trade those 6 years again for that win. I would never do it. I would never consider it in a million years.
It makes me sad to hear that. And it's unfortunately the way that so many of us are. So I'm going to ask you some questions. So you would think that the more you practice something, the better you get at it. You said you like playing football or wrestling. I presume you're a better wrestler now than when you had first started. It's you practice something, you get better at it.
Sure.
You're 42 years old. You've had 42 years now to live your life. And are you better at living your life now than you were yesterday, than you were 10 years ago, than you were 20 years ago? I would put out there that as good a measure of any of your success at living your life is that your life is easier now than it was 10 years ago. Life could be hard. There's ups and downs, reversal of fortune, loss of loved ones, health challenges. This could be hard stuff. But is it easier? Are you better at dealing with life's up and downs now than you were 10 years ago? I'd argue that as good a measure of any of the success in your life is, are you on a more meaningful path that just fills you with satisfaction now than you were 10 years ago? Mm-hmm. And I'd argue that another measure of the success at living your life, are you more joyful now than you were yesterday? You have more joy in your life than 10 years ago? Do you have more joy in your life now than when you were 3 years old? You've had 42 years to find out what makes you happy. And for most of us, the answer to those questions are no. And isn't that, it's sad. That some of the greatest minds to have ever lived have been asking and answering these questions for 5,000 years. The answers are out there. Why don't you know how to be, I'm not saying you, but why don't we know how to be happy? Why don't we know how to make our lives easy? Why don't we know how to make our lives meaningful? And that's work that I try to do with people to help them along that path.
So for me, I think part of it is figuring out what is stopping you from being happy, right? And then and I've been on this path pretty hard. When you were asking the questions, I was like, I am for sure. And, but how I get it is different.
Yeah.
Right. Because I used to think wins by being the best and making money and having people like, tell me I'm amazing is which I love all that shit. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't see how you can't. Like, some people are like, no, I hate when people compliment me. I'm like, fuck, I don't. Like, you can give me as many fucking compliments as you want. Like, please, Jonathan, tell me how great I am. But so I still, like, listen, anyone who wants to send me an email telling me how fucking amazing I am, like, I will, you'll give a big hug, virtual hug for me. But that was what I did it for. And it wasn't about, and I sold myself on the idea that you got to work hard and suffer to get there, because if you want the glory, right? And listen, in America, that is a story that we are taught very young, that you can suffer and win, right? And if you don't suffer, you're never going to accomplish anything great, right? I mean, dude, how many people are like, I mean, I hear people say it and I'm like, I half agree and I half disagree. I agree that, anything worth having is hard to do, but why do I have to suffer through it?
Well, here's what I'll tell you. Happiness is very simple. We're happy when we embrace the way that things are right now. If you embrace the way things are right now, you're happy. There's nothing more I'd like right now, Darius, than just to be talking to you about this stuff. I love this stuff. But if I would be rather, having lunch with my family, then this interview is going to be a bad experience for me. But if right now there's nothing more that I want, I just embrace being with you, then I'm going to be happy. And it's the same with everything. You're walking away from your business. It's hard. But if you can embrace that, happiness is innate. It comes from within. And it's related. I want to show you this tool you said about making money. And the first thing I'm going to introduce a concept. It's called mental models. And I know you've done a lot of work with this. The idea behind mental models is that reality is just too complex for any of us to understand. We all just have a very narrow vision of what is. And because it's impossible to act in a world where we're completely overwhelmed with information, we make these mental models that simplify things. All mental models are wrong. Some are useful. Some are useful in helping you achieve things. Some are helpful in predicting things. Some are completely untethered from reality. But we all have these mental models. The problem isn't that you have them. The problem happens when you believe that they're true. And you have a belief apparently around money that, there's never enough, right? So here's an exercise for you. And you can either do it along with me or you could just write it. I'll send you a worksheet on it later.
No, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm all about doing stuff.
All right, perfect. So if you have a belief, if you have a thought that brings you joy and that's useful to you, fantastic, keep it. If you have a thought that brings you stress and that makes you unhappy, change it. So let's see if we could change it. So you state your belief around money. There's never enough?
I believe that, you can't have enough.
Okay. So describe the facts. Describe the objective facts in your life around this. Describe a scenario where you experience this. Describe the the bullet points that substantiate this belief.
Yeah, because you hear people that lose all their money, that I have a lot of macroeconomic reasons why I believe this, that we have, governments manipulating currency. We have the markets are like volatile, that essentially there's too much debt in the world and that it's unsustainable, and that if you invest, you might lose all your money.
All right. So you're not crazy. There's reasons to believe this.
Yeah.
What are things that you've done about this? And what were the results?
I just start businesses to make money so that I can have more of it, to buy myself freedom to make decisions without having to be forced to make decisions in a short period of time.
Okay. All right. So here's the real power in this exercise. Think of an alternative interpretation of events. think of some other explanation around the nature of money. Be creative, something that might be more pleasing to you. Just make a list. What are other ways to think about how much money there is in the world?
That there's enough for everybody.
There's enough money for everybody. What else?
That you don't need money. That
Don't
all
need
you
money.
need is love.
All you need is love. Beautiful. What else?
That money's evil.
Money's evil. Why would you want to be associated with it? What else?
That, greed that doesn't make you happy.
All right, great. So you have your 5 or whatever it is. Now, reflecting on those that you just put out, is there one that you wish was true? Is there one that just makes you feel better about living in the world?
Yeah, that there's enough money for everybody.
There's enough money for everybody. Let's pretend that's true. But I'm sorry, before we pretend it's true, what evidence can you compile from your own experience that substantiates that claim that there's enough money for everyone?
I mean, for sure, if you look at money supply and divide it by the number of people out there, then there's definitely enough money for everybody.
Sure. And have you ever been at risk of starving to death or being homeless?
No.
No. All right. So there's reasons to believe that it might be true, and probably just as many reasons as your other belief. So for the next week, your assignment, Darius, is to pretend that it is true, that there's enough money for everyone, and to act as if it were true, and to ask yourself, what action does that invite? And then do that. Do it for a week, and then reassess and see if you want to continue it or not. And if you do that, it's my experience that you'll find that this new belief, which is also a mental model, which is not necessarily any more complete or accurate than your old mental model, but it is more joyful. And if it serves you, if it makes you happier, if it serves you better, grow it, and it'll come to eclipse the other one.
So could you give me an example if, like, you were me and you were doing this for a week? What would be an example of you doing that? Imagining that there's enough money for everybody. What would be a good example? Like, what would you do with your money? How would you act differently with your money?
Well, if there's enough for everybody, I think I'd be more generous. If there's enough for everybody, then when I felt that tug of not being enough, I might remind myself that this is ridiculous. It's plenty of money. Money's like oxygen, just around. It's always there. Worst case, my twin brother is money. I could live with him.
All right.
And I'd live, and for a week, live your life as if it's true, and see what you think about the results.
All right.
And if it doesn't work, do it again. Come up with choose something else from your list, and act as if that were true.
All right.
All models are wrong. Some models are useful.
Interesting. Okay, I like that. We have this. Thank you, by the way. That was cool. I'm gonna do it. I'll email you and let you know where I end up. I already know one thing I'm gonna do because I told myself I was gonna do it after a previous show and I didn't do it, and now I'm gonna do it. So you just reminded me of it, which is I'm gonna go give away some money. But it doesn't need to be a lot of money. It could be a little bit of money. Sure. I'm gonna go give away $20.
Do a small test. Don't test it by giving away your life savings.
Yeah, no. It's good. It's like I couldn't do that if I wanted to because I would be too freaked out. So no. Like it'll be like something that's like inconsequential no matter what. So we have 2 questions. I want to answer them because people have been waiting patiently for like an hour for these questions. Yeah. So if you left already, sorry we didn't get to them sooner. I was selfishly just getting all my questions answered from Jonathan. First question is, if you feel like your what and your why are off, how do you sync them up?
How do you sync them up?
Yeah.
Well, so the first question is, do you know what your why is? And if the answer is no, there's an exercise to do that. I don't want to feel like I'm throwing shade on Simon Sinek. He's brilliant and he's he's made my life better. But reading his books does not tell you how to, find your why. I mean, he does say it, but so this is one of the things that makes what I do for me so great and so in line with my what. I read Find Your Why, and I thought, okay, great. I have the steps now, and I followed the steps, and it didn't work. Like I went through the steps.
Why?
I didn't find my why.
Why?
And then I read it again.
Why did you not find your why?
So the reason I didn't find my why, because he's very clear in what the steps are, but he says an instruction, which he repeats a bunch of times, but I just read it and like, yeah. He's like, when you tell your stories that are most impactful in your life and be as detailed as possible. He says, don't say, when I was a kid, I used to go to my family's cabin in the summer. That is useless for finding your why. You need to say, when I was 8, I went to my family's cabin in the woods, and this happened and that happened, and that's what made it impactful. And when I told my stories, they were all generalities, and they were completely useless. And he had the instructions in the book, but I'm guessing that most people just glossed over it like I did and then just couldn't find their why. I spent 10 hours going over my notes and wrestling with this, wrestling it into a worksheet that anyone could follow. And I have in like bold type before you tell your stories. Seriously, can't be generalities. It needs to be specific stories. And I think unless you have someone, a guide who tells you, like, really, we mean it, then it's going to be hard to do. But find your why. And if the person asks this question, if you don't know what your why is, contact me after the show. I'll be happy to go through the exercise with you.
Cool.
So the first thing is just to know what your why is. And if your life is not in alignment with your why, you're just going to find everything's hard. There's no joy in it. You're deadening your aliveness. It's important, but you need to know what it is first. And if your life is out of sync with your what, it starts in that same place. Do you know what your what is? What makes your heart sing? It's, a lot of us talk about what we're passionate about. And if you were asking me, 10 years ago what I was passionate about, I would have told you I was passionate about my business, selling fun, practical, unique children's accessories. And I was. That's all I thought about. I worked hard. I tried to build a great company. But if you had asked me, does selling fun, practical, unique children's accessories make your heart sing? The answer would be no. I didn't go into business because I love business. I went into business because I wanted to have a certain lifestyle. And so ask yourself that question. What makes your heart sing? And if you don't know, experiment until you find your pizza. If you've never tried pizza before, you don't know that pizza is your favorite food.
Okay.
Try things. And then once you have an inkling that you have found something, you love it, it makes your heart sing, you're good at it, the world needs it, and you could be paid for it. Or for the entrepreneurs in the audience, that you could build a business around it. Then sit with it. Make sure after a few days that it really does resonate. Don't sell your house and, just leap into the bonfire before you're ready. Test it in a small way. Give away $20. See what happens. And if the feedback that you get with your logical mind and your senses says that, maybe this is something, maybe this is it, then abandon the idea that you could do it without risk. Jump into the bonfire.
That's cool. Sorry, I had a Skype call that I missed. So sorry for the Skype person that I'm supposed to be on the phone with 15 minutes ago. You got to wait. I love that, man. And that's a really cool framework for picking a what that is. And I mean, I really feel like you're kind of nailing the what side of this. Maybe that's your book.
Yeah.
Seriously, because Simon kind of undermines the how and the why, or the how and the what. When, to your point, it's a trifecta. If you can, and I actually because I saw that talk, I'm like, yeah, the what doesn't matter.
For a company, he's right. For an individual, your life is the what. What's all that matters. It's enhanced tremendously by your why and your how. And if you don't know your why and how, and you're not aligned with them, then it causes all sorts of problems. But your life is the what. Yeah,
that's a great point. The second question is, if you used to have a what and your motivation on that what has faded, how do you get it back?
Sure. So there are many things that make our hearts sing, and not all of those things are the great stuff of our life. Not all of those things are worth devoting our lives to. Again, I mean, if you love to sing, sing. But that doesn't mean that you have to become a professional singer. Your purpose in life is where what makes your heart sing meets the needs of the world. Maybe what you used to do was tremendously needed by the world 10 years ago. Maybe it's not needed anymore. You need to find a new what. Maybe that thing that you thought was your what was just what adjacent. Maybe it wasn't the real thing. Take a step back, observe yourself, observe your life. In the last 10 years, what makes your heart sing? What lights you up? Are you good at it? Do you love it? Does the world need it? Can you be paid for it? And find a way to make a business out of it.
Very cool. Oh man, Jonathan, what a great show. What a great talk. So let's go wrap it up. Like, where can people find you? I'll have my team put it in the comments. And yeah, guys, what a freaking way to end the week. I got one more show, I think, today, but I could just put a fork in it if you ask me. This is just such a cool show we just did.
The best way to get in contact with me is through my website, www.untangled-coaching.com, untangled-coaching.com. From there, you could contact me and find out more about me.
Yeah, guys, if you're looking to untangle your business life, personal life, all these different lives, hook up with Jonathan. Like I said, how he and I are in MIT group together, Gathering Titans, but what got us connected was through the founder of Gathering Titans, Rick Sapia, was like, hey, Jonathan's starting this practice, you should connect with him. And I was like, yeah, like, let's talk. So, and he and I just really hit it off. And obviously he pays me many compliments on my book, which makes my ego get big.
For anyone listening, if you have any questions or want to follow up on anything, I'd be delighted to talk to you.
Yeah. So guys,
this is my purpose. This is what I live for.
Yeah, please connect with Jonathan. We'll have his contact information and all his website and all that stuff in the comment section. It's do yourself a favor and please connect with him. And on my end, guys, we got next week. I'm going light on the show. I'm taking a few days off. I think we got 1 or 2 shows. I'm doing my son, which will be fun. Got one more show today with Jeff Moody this afternoon. Dr. Jeff Moody. So we're going to, and Jamie Duragi. Oh, I got 2 shows. It's the first of 3 shows. So those are going to be some fun shows. We got those going on this afternoon. Follow us at The Real Darius M on Facebook. Start watch parties. Share these with your friends. This is all about dropping knowledge and helping people. You can also go to the website, www.therealdarius.com. Subscribe there to our site so you get updates on the show. I promise not to spam you. And last but not least, YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. It lets you know right when the shows are finished. They get emailed to your inbox, and we're really trying to build a following that way. But without further ado, thank you so much for Jonathan, so much for the time, man. This has been such a treat. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure, Darius. You're doing great work. Glad to be a part of it.
All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Peace.